Hello and welcome to a very special episode of 5 Sports as the Euro 21 tournament rolls on. Our exclusive 5 Sports soccer analyst, because he is nowhere else, Daria Amir Shahi. Welcome to the show. It's good to have you.
Thank you for having me, man. It's glad to be here. Let's talk some soccer.
Yeah, we've definitely had some banter throughout the years and throughout this tournament, and there's definitely been some picks we got wrong. I know Turkey was a big upset or not upset favorite, a dark horse for a lot of teams, but they crashed out pretty measly. Let's say a few words to all the teams that have departed. Turkey, gobble gobble,
Yeah.
see you later.
Oh man,
that
they're very disappointing tournament for them. Very disappointing. Oh
mhm.
man, and they were supposed to be the dark horses for a lot of people. I know
Yeah.
coming into it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, go.
Turkey I think fooled everyone. Their highest goal scorer I think was a defender with 3 in the round robin. They were very good defensively, but in my opinion, they didn't play anyone strong enough, and clearly just outclassed by just some better teams in their group. Finland, one win against Denmark. Scary moment in that game with the Eriksson heart attack, but Finland is out of the tournament with only one win. Bye bye Finland. Any final words for the
Yeah,
Finns?
honestly though, they should be proud. They
Mm-hmm.
really came into this tournament with some heart. Nobody should. Them and Hungary, of course, they really played their hearts out in the groups they were, and
Mm-hmm.
they'll just take the experience for the World Cup if they are able to make it on next Euros.
Yeah, strange game against Denmark, but defensively they always held their own, and they were the one team I think with North Macedonia that everyone kind of read off. So it's good for them to get a win, not finish last. That distinction in Group B fell to Russia. Fairly disappointing for Russia. Toothless, lifeless, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree. They were quite disappointing this time around, especially in their final game where they got destroyed by Denmark. It's one of those where we just have to see where they go. They're still somewhat of a young team going in. Well, we can only say that for so long, and going into this
Yeah.
2022 World Cup. But yeah, it's an unfortunate tournament for them, so we have to see where they go.
North Macedonia in Group C was the one eliminated, but Goran Pandev, that was really the story at North Macedonia. First ever tournament for them. It's almost like the circle of life for North Macedonia. He started as a young kid, 17, and he's really been the face of that program.
Yeah, I absolutely loved it, especially in the final game where they when they're playing the Dutch. They
Mm-hmm.
did a guard of honor, I believe it's called, and it was a really great moment for him. And you know what, for their first tournament ever and scoring their first goal ever, I think it was a fairy tale, really, especially in their first game.
100%. The Scots, I'm trying to think of the right word to describe the Scots. Good-hearted, good effort, created a lot of chances in their games, except for maybe England. That was really the one lifeless game. But against Croatia, they had their chances, and against Czech Republic, they definitely had their chances. If not for Patrick Schick scoring worldies on them.
Yeah, no, they were, you know what, they performed quite a bit in this tournament, of course, because of our the United veteran Scott McTominay in the midfield. But
Yeah.
in all seriousness, they had a decent tournament. They came into playing with England with that 0-0 draw. They can take some things from this tournament and keep going for 2022. Unfortunate, but it's to be expected in the group they were in.
It feels like the best way to describe Scotland was just their own worst enemies. They really were, because they
Oh
definitely
yeah.
had chances in their games. England, they held scoreless, so maybe if they would have shown a little bit more a little more bravery, I would say, especially from their head coach. He's very pragmatic, and that's kind of well known within the Scottish camp, but I feel like they could have used in that England game. Maybe they could have pushed on against the Croatians if they would have maybe got a bigger result against England. They felt contempt to kind of have the 0-0, have the fans celebrate that, have that as their victory and then go home. But it definitely feels like they're the worst own enemies, because in the other 2 games they definitely had opportunities to possibly win those games.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that.
Slovakia, great defensive effort, great first. They won their first game. It was against Poland, right? They played Poland the opener, won that game, but fell in their latter 2 against Sweden and Spain. Any final words for Slovakia?
They again. That's another team that I thought actually played pretty well in all three. Even in the third game, they weren't even though they lost by a large
Hmm.
margin. I didn't think Slovakia played really all too bad this tournament. I thought the group itself didn't pan out the way it could have. I mean, playing against Poland and then Sweden are definitely a highlight of this tournament so far. So
Yeah.
it's unfortunate that they couldn't make it out, but I was impressed by what I was seeing from Slovakia. To be honest, it's a shame that they're out.
Definitely felt like they were missing a spark because defensively, I thought they were very good with the
Mhm.
combination of Skirtle and the Inter Milan man. De Vrij on top of my head, even though I know he's
Uh,
playing.
Skinny art.
Yeah,
Skinny.
thank you, Skriniar. Yeah, I thought those two were excellent, especially in their opener against Poland, and they tried against Spain. I think they were let down early by mistakes, and then kind of Spain just grew in confidence. And we know how well Spain can pass around people. The question has always been scoring, so we'll get into Spain a little bit. But Slovakia, again, a bit of their own worst victims. They needed that spark offensively. They had it in their first game when they had that great individual effort from Robert Mack, but they didn't have that the rest of the tournament. Goalless against Sweden, didn't really create anything. Sweden got the penalty to beat them, and then once they went down in Spain, it was over from there. So Slovakia were interesting in the opening game, but they really were a let off after those two. And finally, in Group E, Poland also did not survive. Lewandowski tried, as he always does, scored the goals, but at the end of the day, Poland finished last in that group. Not much more to say about Poland. Sayonara. Sorry to
Yes.
not see Robert Lewandowski because he is, class act whenever he's on the pitch, but not anymore in this tournament.
Yeah, it's very overall underwhelming performance from Poland. I expected much bigger things, especially when you have arguably one of the best strikers in the world right now. It's unfortunate
Mm.
for Poland's sake. They had a very good crop, and I don't know. I think Lewandowski will be good for the 2022 World Cup, but you do really feel like Poland should be doing better in these type of tournaments. They have not. I don't think they've gone past the quarterfinals or even the round of
No,
16 since in the last two tournaments where they had quite a few good players in their
yeah,
crop there, but it's
they're kind of
unfortunate.
gold. Yeah, it's kind of their golden era, and they let us slip a little bit. I thought the midfield was very weak. I
Oh
thought
yes.
it was an older midfield, so they were beat a lot for pace in that area of the pitch. And defensively, they have their moments of the lapse of concentration, which obviously hurt them in their games against Sweden and Slovakia specifically. And finally, the last team that has been eliminated, one of the favorites coming out of this tournament, Hungary. No one expect them to do well, and they were maybe 20 minutes away from taking away Germany's place, but a Leon Goretzka goal puts Germany through in second and setting up a fantastic tie with England. But any last words on Hungary?
Hungary probably was in one of the best group of deaths I've ever seen in any tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, that final day, I don't know if you were watching too, but
Yeah.
like that it was incredible what was going on. And Hungary, unfortunately, at one point they were, I believe, even second place or even first at one point. It was an incredible day. It's unfortunate Hungary got the bad end of the stick there, but you know what? They should be really proud. They really did perform in every single game. Even in the game against Portugal, they lost 3-0. They were
Yeah.
very much in that tie. And
That was a
unfortunately,
late barrage from Portugal. The one thing I'll say about Hungary, they're missing one of their better players, Shuza Bali. If maybe he plays against Portugal, maybe he finds a way to get advantage. Maybe he puts them up 1-0. Again, all hypotheticals, but Hungary defensively were fantastic. They were put under the cosh against three world class
uh,
teams, and they 100% held their own. Scoring a few goals in there as well. They definitely made their fans and their country proud.
they tied France and Germany. They can say that in on the world stage like this. It was incredible. They should all be proud.
100%. On to the round 16, where we have some fantastic fixtures, some not so enticing fixtures, but there are definitely some good teams that are going to be involved in this knockout stage of this tournament. The first game we will start with the first game that goes on Saturday at noon, Wales versus Denmark. I can only see one winner. What do you predict here?
Oh, absolutely. To me, it's Denmark all the way.
Mm-hmm.
I have not been impressed with that Wales team. I don't even think they should be in the round of 16. Personally, I have been the type of football they've been playing has been very hard to watch. Whereas this Denmark team really is coming off a resurgent win against Russia in their final game. Um, I honestly can't see like in terms of every position. I personally was putting Denmark as one of my dark horses at the
Yeah,
start of the tournament,
I completely agree.
and I think honestly, going against Wales, I think this is just their golden opportunity to keep the goal scoring going.
Yeah, the problem with Wales is they're too reliant on Bale and Ramsey. I mean, they have players that are known, like Joe Allen, the midfield's been around forever. Um, it's just they don't have a very inspiring team, and it feels like they haven't been together for long enough. Kind of unlike the team in 2016 when they went on their semifinal run. It just, they got to this point, which is good. I just think the way Denmark played against Russia, the spirit they have, the emotion they're going to be playing off of, with, the Ericsson heart attack, obviously in the back of their mind. In the game against Finland, which they completely dominated, they lost. The game against Belgium, they were very good in as well. Again, just lost. So the resolve they showed against Russia, and I think defensively, Denmark's too good with the combination of Christensen and Kjær in the back three. The two center backs I think are excellent. They'll lock off the right and the middle respectively. I find it very hard for Wales to win because I know how much they're going to have to rely on Bale and Ramsey, and I feel like with the three, they're going to be so well protected, the Danes, and then the midfield they'll be able to break the lines and eventually break. I'm assuming it's going to be the Welsh wall because I'm just assuming they're going to put 9 or 10 guys behind the ball most times. I see this being like a 2-0 game. Maybe Wales sneak 1-2-1, even 1-0. I can't see Wales winning this game.
Yeah, I would agree. Like a 1-0, 2-0 for Denmark, in my opinion.
Yeah, and definitely a team that a lot of people are rooting for off the back of the Ericsson scare. A team that has been fairly impressive, though, Italy faced off against Austria, a team that haven't been so inspiring. Again, I really only see one winner in this, but how can Austria how can Austria cause an upset?
Well, yeah, the thing about Austria, they have to be very compact defensively. This is a very different Italian team that we've seen in recent years. A very enjoyably, we could really enjoy this Italian style of play, which is very much attack, attack, attack. And that's something we're not really used to. Austria have to be very compact defensively, which they haven't really been in their previous few games. So that is a bit of a worry there. However, of course, you do have some veteran players in there, such as David Alaba, but he's been playing out of position or basically playing in every single position at this point. It's crazy. But honestly, I do agree with you. I honestly think this is like an Italy like 2-0 or 2-0 because I just don't see Austria really having a chance against this team. But
yeah.
stranger things have happened.
Austria are solid defensively, so I think they'll have to prioritize that. If they have a chance to win, David Alaba, I have to say, the crosses that he's been putting in this and the set pieces have been nothing short of flawless. Him and Kimmich, I think, have been the two guys every time they're on the ball, I've just been whipping in incredible balls. So if they can get a guy, Austria, if they have, Arnautovic, and if he's starting, if he can get a goal, we saw what he did in the Prem a few years ago. He has that ability to kind of find goals out of nothing. And Austria do have a few of those guys. So if they could look, you can score from anywhere. So it's going to be tough for them, especially the way Italy have been playing. Defensively, they've been extremely sound. Their midfield, you really couldn't pick a bad player out of, the 5 guys I'd be in rotation. Jorginho, Locatelli, Verratti came in the third game, stole the game. Berardi, the ball he hit in the second game to set up the first goal. Again, Italy have been playing so perfect that it feels like if they start to struggle, if they give up a goal, they may be in trouble because they haven't faced any pressure yet. So that's going to be the one worry for Italy, I find, is they haven't faced too much adversity in the group stage. So sometimes that could be a problem. But the job that Roberto Mancini's done, I mean, shout out from the heavens because he is the way he transformed this team from not being in the World Cup in 2018 to him coming in and basically completely running the ship. And all of a sudden they're tournament favorites, which wasn't the story at the beginning of the tournament. People had a lot of question marks in Italy, but after that first game, and especially after the third game, there are no doubts. If you had to pick one player from the Italy team attacking wise, who do you think could be the difference maker? Because we've seen a lot of balance from Italy. We've seen Ciro Immobile and Insigne. They haven't been perfect, but they have been good. Is there anyone in the front three that you could maybe pick out and say, this is a guy you have to look out for. This is the guy that could carry you to the Euro Championship if you're Italy? Like, who's that one guy that you could possibly rely on if you're the Italians?
Well, I would say from an offensive standpoint, I would say Immobile is definitely one of those players. I mean, he's been doing it for the past 5 years in Italy. I
Yeah.
think his goal to game ratio is incredible, especially in club football. So seeing him, I do think he's quite the player. I do think though it comes down to their midfield, which is, I would say, a variety. They have a very good combo or that Mancini does have to think about coming into this game against Austria. So that's definitely one of their highlights, I would say, the trio that they got going over there. So definitely, I would say their central midfield, if not on an attacking standpoint, I would say Immobile, definitely.
Yeah, I just brought up the question because their midfield is basically flawless. You know, Jorginho's been running every game. Locatelli, you know, he had this 2-goal performance, and he's had a lot of plaudits in Italy, you know, box to box. So he's really, you know, everyone in their midfield has their role. I find, you know, Barella, you know, coming in and out, you know, breaking the lines, you know, beating field for pace with his dribble in the midfield. And we know what Jorginho brings, you know, watching him in the Prem, you know, you've watched enough Chelsea games. I watch basically every Chelsea game as a fan to know and understand what Jorginho does and what his strengths are. So it feels like defensively they're set. Like there's not really a hole defensively. Spinazzola's had a terrific tournament. I think he's definitely, you know, pushed his stocks up, you know, tenfold. So I'm looking at the tie because they've had, you know, 2-3-0 wins, but they've been missing a lot of chances and they haven't really had that clinical finisher. And that's really the big question mark around, you know, championship teams. I was just wondering, can Immobile do it? Are they gonna have to put in a guy like Chiesa maybe off the bench? Could that be the difference maker? I mean, there's a lot of question marks around Italy, so I'm just kind of like honing in on like what to really focus on and what to really look out for it in that Italian attack.
There's definitely a lot of options, and I think that's the thing about this Italian team. They're
Unpredictable.
they are unpredictable, and that's the thing. That's the thing coming into this tournament. A lot of us were saying, as you said, I don't know if this Italian. There's a lot of question marks with this team, and yes, here's the thing. They're coming out of this group, which, let's be honest, it wasn't exactly a standout group. They did the likes of Turkey, Wales. It wasn't exactly.
They weren't tested. Yeah.
No, they weren't.
They didn't get a true test like some of the other teams. I agree. That's why it's very hard to call them.
Oh, absolutely. And while I think Austria are definitely going to be somewhat of a, I can't even say a bigger test. They're relatively in the same.
Yeah, it'd be about similar, right? Yeah, I'd agree. It's hard to really say that it's more of a challenge.
I do think that we'll have to see. It's a do or die game for them. I think in terms of this fluid attacking team, we've already, as I mentioned before, the defensively, the Italians are always the kings of that. But in terms of how they brought in their attacking play, I do think there's a fluid style to it. So in terms of where it can come from Insigne, Immobile, there's a lot of different variables with this Italian team.
As long as someone puts the ball in the back of the net, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Fair point. Yeah, I find it very hard to pick against Italy simply because, you know, you can't really fool, you know, soccer fans. You can't really fool viewers. They played phenomenal football. They've been flawless. Their midfield has run every game. So I think that's why we both have Italy fairly confidently. That's why we can, you know, sing their praises as well as every other soccer fan is. Italy and Roberto Mancini's side have been a terrific watch. Speaking of terrific watches, that's been also unexpected. Frank de Boer in Netherlands. They've been exciting. They've been attacking. They've been creating chances, and they've been scoring goals. Depay and Malen have a nice chemistry up top. And all of a sudden, all the critics for Frank de Boer, which I mean, I was one of them. You're one of them. I called him Frank de Boring, but I mean, you have to give them credit because they're playing well and they have a decent opportunity to beat the Czech Republic, a team on paper historically. Netherlands is definitely, you know, the more prestigious footballing side on that end.
Yeah, absolutely. They were part of probably one of the better games of this tournament against Ukraine. I do think in generally a kind of similar stance though, like Italy, they weren't exactly tested all that much, which is the problem sometimes about these group stage games. That being said, you have to give them credit where it's due. Wijnaldum's been playing great. You have Depay playing. You have also a lot of young players.
The one guy that has to get a mention is Frankie de Jong. I mean, people have been chasing his shadow this entire tournament.
He's been fantastic. This entire Dutch team is, I'm not going to say it's like all times how you would normally see the Dutch play.
Yeah, you can't say that.
Yeah, but there's definitely a style of play there that is very much You could say in some ways reminiscent of that. And of course, again, this is coming into a game against a very tricky Czech Republic team, which have been performing quite a bit. So it's this one is actually one of the tough ones. I really do think it's going to be a little bit of a tough one for the Dutch. But seeing how they have been playing and the way Depay in particular is playing, who knows?
Yeah, he seems to have earned his move to Barca. The one thing I'll say about the Czechs, I think they have to score first, because I think Netherlands score first. I think they're in deep trouble. The thing of Netherlands, I don't think have been behind yet, because like against Ukraine they're up to. They're up 2-0. The Ukraine tied it, and Netherlands scored in the last minute with Dumfries. Czechs, they're tough to pick because outside of Patrick Schick, they haven't been scoring much. I don't think they've created too many chances. So I think defensively they'll have to rely, a lot on guys like Thomas Kalas to back, their experienced defenders. Vashlik's probably gonna have to have a good game in net. I think the Bilbao man, I was thinking Sevilla, but I'm 9% sure. If my FIFA memory serves me right, packing his card a few many times. I'm 9% sure Bilbao, but I could be wrong. The Czechs. I think the one key for them, and we haven't seen too much of him, is Souček. If he can kind of fulfill what he was doing in West Ham, going box to box, set pieces is going to be huge for Czech Republic, because we know the size advantage they have simply with Souček and some of the other guys they have on their end. The one thing I'll say for the Dutch, if they had Van Dijk, I'd feel a lot more secure about them. Because defensively, I don't trust all their players entirely, except for maybe De Ligt. But De Ligt, we know, young, has definitely a mistake in him. We've seen mistakes, with Juventus in the past year. So he's definitely not a finished player. He's not, that polished product. So it's going to be interesting. I think Netherlands are going to edge it out, though. I think I'll pick the Dutch 2-1 simply because of the way I've seen them play, the way I've seen them score, the way I've seen them attack. I think they utilize those wing backs extremely well, and their midfield is honestly as athletic and, as kind of as good as some of the other midfields we've seen this tournament. If Depay can, grab one, I think Netherlands have too many good things going for them right now to all of a sudden drop the Czech Republic. But they're that sort of team with Frank de Boer that can all of a sudden just have a let off in performance. If they show up, if they come with pace and intensity, I don't think the Czechs can keep up with them. But if the Netherlands let the Czech Republic grow into the game, if it stays scoreless, past the first half, that's when you have to start worrying for the Netherlands. So the first half of that game is going to be crucial.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I am imagining the Dutch as well. As I do mention, I do think that that Czech Republic team will be tricky for them. But it honestly it comes down to how they approach a game, the Dutch. And I really do think if they approach it how they've done in the previous 3 games, I really do think that there shouldn't be a problem. But I don't think it's one of those they can run away with. I do think Czech Republic will put up a good fight in this one. So yeah, I would go for a 1-0 personally.
All right, let's change gears. There is another game played on that Sunday, but it is one of the better games, so we'll save it for the end. Croatia-Spain is a game, one of the 2 games on Monday. 2 teams that have been underwhelming at times, but we know the quality that both of them possess. How do you see this one going? Because it really could go either way.
It's weird. I haven't been I personally am a very big fan of Spanish football, but I have not been a fan of how I've been watching them in this tournament. And even against Slovakia, I'm still not convinced on how they are as a unit. And the same can be really said about Croatia. I don't really think I was surprised how they made it made it into the round of 16 in general. Especially by how they start off the tournament. Even though they were playing against a good England side, I'm still a bit like both teams. I'm kind of like it's probably a 1-0.
Yeah,
on the fence. It could honestly go either way for both of them. I do think obviously from Spain has the quality still. This is not the same era as Xavi and Iniesta anymore, but they still have the midfield depth. When you have players like Koke and you have a bunch of a lot of young players, there is an issue of experience that I think that this Spanish team has been suffering, especially against their game against Sweden in the first. And I think it's going to become a problem going on forward if they do go past this round. That being said, I think this is, if anything, I think they're slightly favored Spain. Yeah. But you know what? I wouldn't count Croatia out at all, to be honest, in this one.
I'm going to go with Spain simply because I think Croatia played too much like Spain. They like to keep possession. I think Modric, just at his age, it's going to be tough for him to carry the Croatians into the next round. Yeah, Spain's good. If they can score, they're good because they keep possession extremely well. They know how to control games. If they score early, it's going to be hard for them to be broken down. So I just for that reason alone, I do like Croatia, or so I do like Spain. But I mean, Croatia just has to bring something we haven't seen. They have to bring something offensively because in the midfield and defensively, we know they're going to like to keep possession. They'll like to try to advance the ball, dribbling through the midfield. But they have to show us something that we haven't seen yet, and they haven't shown Spain yet to really surprise them. Because otherwise, I can't see them doing much.
Unfortunately, Croatia are similar to Poland in the sense where they are at the tail end of their, I guess, their crop of great players. And of course, Modric, I don't think will be playing next season in in the next World Cup. So, or maybe he does, but definitely not in the next Euros. So there's unfortunately that issue there. But it's we'll see. We'll have to see what Croatia does in this game. As I probably would go for a 1-0 Spain, but it should be it's still an interesting watch, even though it will be quite close, I feel.
That's a great point. The other game is France Switzerland. It feels like France is going to win this game, doesn't it?
Yeah, I can't see it going really any other way. Although I do think France have been quite poor in the last two games against Hungary and against Portugal. But you can't really count them out. I think they have an excellent midfield pairing with Conte and Pogba. I think Mbappe and Griezmann have been playing some great football in general. I think defensively, they're quite sound. They have goalkeeping. Like you honestly can see this France team with a lot of depth all around. And I really don't see the Swiss really coming out of this tie or with I mean maybe they could keep it at a 1-0 or such, but I don't see any other winner but France in this one personally.
Yeah, Yuri France have all the quality. I mean, I'm going to 3-0, just standard, maybe 4-0. I think France know they have to turn up soon, and I think Switzerland's a good opportunity. A team that isn't great defensively. Um, yeah, to me, it's just if France again, if they can score early, they can score often. So that's really what I'm looking for with that French squad because we know they can score with Mbappe and Benzema. They haven't been showing it. To be fair, they've been playing good defensive teams, so they haven't had to. I think Switzerland is the worst team they played so far. So it's an opportunity for France to show why they're favorites. The last game of the group stage before we come to the big boys, Sweden, Ukraine. I have Sweden simply because I think their attack slightly better, but Ukraine has definitely been a good watch.
Well, personally, I think this is probably the snooze fest of the round of 16. Just if I'm being honest, I definitely Sweden has been impressive. I do think that the how they came away against Spain and their other fixtures in their group, I do think they were quite impressive in itself. I don't think anybody really saw that coming. And in terms of Ukraine, again, they were part of one of the better games in their group with the Netherlands. So them coming into this is also quite interesting. That being said, it can honestly go either way. If I'm being honest, I would probably give the edge to that Sweden team. I do think they have been performing, especially defensively. So I do think it'll be like a 1-0 for Sweden. But definitely, I have to be honest. This is one of those games I'm going to be trying to keep myself up if I'm honest. So, but we'll see. We'll see. Maybe it's a 3-3. Maybe it's a high scoring game. We'll see.
This game definitely is an early goal. I think the longer this game drags on, the longer again, the better chance that it could be a nap time game. I think there's definitely quality on both sides. I think Ukraine started out well, but their final game, they're extremely poor. It was really a letdown. I'm drawing a blank because they played in their final game. It was because they're in the Spain. No, Ukraine's pissing me off right now. They're in the Dutch group, right? So they were definitely they had a letdown against Austria in their final game. It was the 1-0 against Austria that I'm thinking of, where they just looked lifeless. And Austria was in that game the better team by far. They're the one creating all the chances. They're the ones on the front foot. And it could have been 3 or 4 for Ukraine. So they really have to bounce back. And Shevchenko, doesn't really have that much of a resume as a head coach. And I think maybe just his pedigree alone has kind of inspired Ukraine. So they really have to dig deep against Sweden because we know they're going to be tough to break down, and they really have to use their physicality if they're going to beat Sweden. Let's go to the 2 best games of the round of 16. Belgium, Portugal.
Oh,
wow. class on class on class in this game. How do you see
Yeah.
this one playing out?
Oh man, it's one of those that I'll be so excited to watch. Just in general, both teams are coming into this with a very with both in relatively decent form, especially that
Yeah.
Belgium side, which I have to be honest, I did not think they would be playing as well as they are currently. Definitely, Portugal has its issues. As a United fan, seeing Bruno Fernandes, he hasn't exactly been at his very best in this Portugal side. I
Like
do think
he has been there worse before, which is unfair. It's
unfortunately,
unfair to Bruno because of how good he's been and just in this climate of and every game people's opinions can change on
yeah,
certain players. So I think it's been unfair on Bruno because he's definitely not playing in his best position where he's most comfortable, and they're definitely playing a completely different style than he plays at Man
yeah.
United. So I think it's definitely an adjustment, not only to the stage, because I think this is his first international tournament, Bruno Fernandes. It's
I
almost like,
believe, yeah,
because I don't remember him playing in other ones. It feels like the jump and playing from despite Manchester United being a huge club, I think just the quality, especially in the group,
mhm.
it was just a combination of everything. He was out of position, his first major tournament, the pressure playing with Cristiano Ronaldo, and just the other world class players. I don't know what it is with Bruno because it seems like he's not a guy that lets the pressure get to him. But it's been hard to kind of understand what's going wrong with Bruno because he was basically invisible in those first two games, to put it lightly. I mean, it didn't look like he was on the pitch.
No, it didn't. And I have to say, and this is where the problems come for me for Portugal is that their style of play is very, very strange.
Cautious.
It's very, very cautious, and to be honest, it is what got them to the Euro 2016 final, and won essentially.
Yeah.
I don't know if this time around it'll exactly work, especially with the opposition they're playing against, which is Belgium, which is like there's a lot of factors going into them where they're also at the end of their golden era, I would say.
Yeah. This is they may have another tournament in there because De Bruyne and Lukaku are still in the 30s.
Possibly.
So I mean, the World Cup's next year, so it's not
Yeah.
like this is like they're all 35. I mean, they still have probably even the next Euros to possibly go on and win it, but it feels like everyone's in their peak right now, especially Lukaku and De Bruyne.
And we've been saying it for quite a few years that this Belgium team can win it on paper. They
Yeah.
have the squad, defensive, all from defense to offensive. They have something there that they should be winning this competition, if I'm honest. With that being said, I think they're playing some really, really good fluid attacking football, whereas Portugal is very much based on the counterattack, very cautious style of play. Now, this defense with your championship, you say that in all sports, but to be honest,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if we can say that for this particular Portugal team.
Yeah.
And they do have their question marks, especially with Pepe aging. You have a lot of they're very over reliant on certain players, especially obviously Cristiano Ronaldo, which it's fair. He's arguably one of the best players in the world.
It feels like it feels like you have to rely on a guy like Cristiano Ronaldo. You'd be stupid not to be reliant
Absolutely.
on it. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's one of those fixtures where I'm excited to see what happens. If I'm being honest, I think Belgium have the edge in this game just by the way the form going into this, the players they do have, the style of football. I think as a fan or as a neutral, I would say I would want to see Belgium go through, and personally, I think so also. But you can never discount, as we said, Cristiano Ronaldo, and who knows, Bruno Fernandes. This may be his game that he starts. He starts. You can't deny the quality of that Portugal side with Bernardo Silva. There's just so many options they have, and that's what makes them such a big threat, and what got them out of the group of death in general. So to me, I personally would side with Belgium, just on the edge of Belgium, like a 1-0 or 2-1.
Yeah, I have like two voices, in my head right now. One saying, Belgium's a better team. You got, great goal scorer in Lukaku. You got De Bruyne. You have great structure. You have, great coach Roberto Martinez, who has them playing great football. And then my other year, I have Cristiano Ronaldo could do something special. It's a tough balance because I mean the quality on display is going to be phenomenal. So you're hoping for a great game. The one thing I worry about is Fernando Santos on the Portuguese side. I think his coaching has gone downhill in Portugal ever since the Euro win, has kind of been on a downward spiral.
Completely agree.
And I mean, if we're going to be honest, they weren't that great in their Euro win. their win against France, really was down to the fact that France couldn't score. And Portugal used one moment from Adair, and I'll give you $100 if you could tell me where he's playing currently, because I don't have a
Oh,
clue.
I have no idea.
5 years on it, I couldn't have told you where he was playing 5 years ago, let alone today. So it feels like Portugal got away, with a little in their Euro 2016 win. It's a bit of an easier draw. They had Wales in the semifinal, so it wasn't like the most like gritty, awe-inspiring team I've ever seen in my life. But you gotta be who's in front of you, and circumstance, favors the bold, and that's what happened in 2016. But just as a Belgian fan, as a it helps that Hazard kind of helped their reputation, over 7 years at Chelsea. And it felt like their best chance was at 2018. If they would have been France in the semifinals, they could have easily had a World Cup to their name. So it's a tough game to call. Lukaku is in the best form of his life, in my opinion. I don't think we've ever seen a better version of Lukaku. His hold up play is brilliant. His finishing is brilliant. He looks, faster than he did, 2 years ago. He looks stronger than he did 2 years ago. So whatever Antonio Conte did in Inter Milan has clearly been working. I have to pick Belgium. I have to go with the team that I think's, the better team overall. And, they employ the better system. It's really been the tournament of, the wing backs, the 3-4-3 or the 3-5-2, whatever you want to call it. And it feels like the teams that have employed that formation have had the best success to an extent. So I have to go with Belgium. I think the better team, as long as they don't, lose, any, as long as there's no lapse in the concentration at the back for that Belgium squad, as long as, Alderweireld and, Vertonghen deny or whatever combo they go with. It's not, the strongest center backs you could have, but they play three of them to protect one another. So as long as they play as a unit, as long as they understand their assignments and don't lose their concentration, I think it could be like a 3-2 game. It could be like 2-1, but I'm going to back Belgium in extra time. I think it goes 2-2 and Belgium win in penalties. That's going to be my bold prediction for that game.
Oh wow!
I'll go penalties. Belgium. Hazard to score the final penalty. Subbed on in the 115th minute, he scores the winning penalty. Fair enough. Is that a fair enough?
Oh yeah, no, yeah, yeah. I'm not surprised as a Chelsea fan you'll be saying that.
Yeah. Well, I hope as a Man United fan you have maybe Bruno Fernandes scoring the winning penalty. Maybe
yeah.
you'll have a future like psychoactive dream about that before Sunday's game.
A moment to rejoice.
Yeah. The biggest and I guess the most talked about game of the round of 16 knockout stage is going to be England-Germany. And it's almost going to be talked about for all the wrong reasons, because we're not talking about, how great these teams are. We're almost talking about who's going to be the bigger disappointment, because the expectations on these two teams have been so high and they both had subpar group stages, to say the least. So how do you see this game going? Because it really could go either way.
Oh, I'm just hoping it doesn't go to a penalty shootout. That's all I hope, especially between these two sides. But in all seriousness, it's weird. I do like this England team on paper. I've been saying it since day one. I do think that it's the second best squad on paper in the entire tournament. But I have not been impressed by their coaching, by Gareth Southgate's coaching and his style, the way his approaches. You have all these players of flair and everything, and he still manages to go route one football all the way to Harry Kane. It's absolutely embarrassing, to be honest with you, what I've been watching. At least their second and third game against Croatia, at least they had that 45-minute period where you can actually see that style of play. They actually were playing. But
I mean, soccer or football's a 90-minute game, and the second 45, they're fairly maybe not lucky, because Croatia really didn't show up in the second half either. It was one of the the poorer games of that of the opening round of fixtures. But yeah, it's just they're so uninspiring, England, and for a team with so much talent and quality, it's so disappointing, and it just makes you makes you scratch your head. Like you have an opportunity, once every other year to participate in an international tournament, and for England especially, not winning in the last half century. It's been over 50 years.
Yeah,
I mean, you have to question everything about this team. Let's start from the back. Why Trippier keeps why he started even the first game at left back as a right back, baffling. Calvin Phillips needs to get out. Congrats, he had great first game. Kudos to him. But the second two games, he's basically useless because, the two teams just sat back and, his role is nothing. Get Bellingham in there for Calvin Phillips. That's A. Jude Bellingham definitely deserves the opportunity. Box to box, he can do it all. He has the height, he has the speed. He always looks like a 6'3" ballerina with the football. He is going to be one for the future. If you can't already tell, like there is no flaws in his game. I think only 18 still.
It's
He
incredible.
could be 17. I feel like I have to believe he's 18 just by like law of psychology, but I honestly I would assume he's 17 just for the sake of why not. It's just I can't pick England in this game. Harry Kane keeps playing CDM. It doesn't make sense. No Jack Grealish. Phil Foden. He hasn't been great, but I also feel like he's not being played in his best position. I think he's also a victim of playing Pep Guardiola football for the last 5 years. Having to play Gareth Southgate's Stoke City ball has been basically. He's basically being thrown into a different system, and he's relying on his instincts and individual ability to get it done. And we all know that's not what wins you football games.
No.
It's tactics. It's sometimes a moment of brilliance can win you games, but you don't rely on that to win an international tournament, let alone the Euros.
They honestly, this England team needs to take lessons from the Italians. They simply have not changed their style of play over these last 2 decades. They completely go for this route one football. Harry Kane coming up to pick up the ball, trying to look for like these long passes, like having Harry Maguire all the way from defense go, trying to make these long. It's honestly kind of embarrassing when you have these. And there's some players on this bench like Jadon Sancho who hasn't really got a run in. You obviously have Marcus Rashford, who's
Sancho definitely. I wouldn't play Rashford because his injury does bother me, and it feels like he's a guy that's relying on a moment of brilliance right now. I think he needs surgery. He needs recovery time because the amount of games he's played for Man United has been just over the top ludicrous.
That's fair.
I think Rashford is a quality player, but with all quality players, you have to understand when they're not at their best, and I think Rashford hasn't been at his best for the last 4 or 5 months. I think he needs a rest. I think he needs surgery on whatever ankle needs surgery. I think you need to get him downtime because you don't want Rashford burning out, especially at his age, because he definitely has a bright future ahead of him. So I wouldn't rely on Rashford this turn just because Jack Grealish is in fantastic form.
Yes.
Sancho, if he gets an opportunity to prove, his ability, he's definitely going to go out there with a point to prove, with an upcoming move likely to Manchester United. I can't confirm anything with Ed Woodward and the Glazers and how they run their team, but it seems like it's 99% done. So Sancho looks like he's going to go United. He definitely is going to want, to prove something to England fans and United fans, coming off, a 90 million transfer. So just, before we go on predictions, let's go on our preferred lineups. Let's give our lineups for England because there's definitely been a lot of debate on how you can line up with, the ample kind of options that England does possess. So would you go Pickford and net? Pickford's had a decent tournament. We could just stick Pickford in there without much debate.
Before the start of the tournament,
I would have gone Nick Pope. Henderson.
Or Nick Pope.
I would have looked at Nick Pope. I think he was terrific all year. But Pickford's done good. Yeah. We can't criticize Pickford. He's been their number one for a while, so he's backed him. Defensively, I'd go Harry Maguire, Stones as 2 center backs.
I don't see any other one personally. I love Tyrone Mings. I think he did a great job in the first game, but
he's also he's an accident waiting to happen.
Yes, he really is. He really is.
Fullbacks, I'd go Luke Shaw left back. I'd go Reece James at right back. I think Kyle Walker doesn't always bring his best for England, so I just think Reece James right now is a little more reliable.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
But you don't really have a bad option at right back. In the midfield, I'd go Declan Rice and Bellingham, and Mount.
That's the problem, though.
Yeah.
He's been changed. Like he's been going for having 2 DMs, especially in that game against Czech Republic, while having Calvin Phillips and Declan Rice, which once again was a very conservative move to make in a game like that,
and didn't pan out.
Yeah, it really. Not really. They were horrible to watch, especially in that second half. It was awful to watch. That being said, I do agree with you. I think you have the Jude Bellingham, then you have Declan Rice as well as.
I put Mason Mount as like the creative kind of a spark plug, and then on top I'd go Grealish, Kane. I'd say Foden with Sancho off the bench.
Yes.
But honestly, I'd probably start Sancho
But
in
you,
against Germany. But it's
but
not going to
let's be
happen. So
honest.
it's like I don't want to predict it. But
Yeah,
that's personally, I would play Sancho. He is that good.
let's be honest though. I think our prediction. This is I don't know if
No,
this could be even anywhere near to a
Calvin Phillips is going to play. Harry Kane's going to
yes.
play be the third CDM. So whatever. Prediction. I'm going to go Germany. I'm going to go Germany 3-1. I hate Gareth Southgate, and I hope he screws himself over because I can't stand watching England, and they don't deserve to be in this tournament anymore.
I'm going one better. I think it's going to repeat the 2010 World Cup. It's going to
4-2.
be a four.
Four.
Was it 4-2 or 4-1?
I think it was 4-2.
Either way, yeah, I'll go 4-2 then.
If Lampard
I didn't have any hope.
if Lampard would have had his goal count, maybe it would have been 4-3. But yeah, iconic.
I don't have any hope with
ref Rob Bridge on that. Yeah, so you have no hope. We're both going Germany.
Yeah, honestly, I don't unless Gareth Southgate can really like somewhat change everything in this next game. I don't see a chance for them, especially with this German team, which they came out of the group of death, I believe, as a second place team. I don't see a chance.
Interesting. Well, that has been our round of 16 preview. Special thank you for Daria for bringing his insight and analysis. It's definitely been a welcome addition to 5-5 Sports. Hopefully, we can bring you more soccer content in the future. Maybe we'll add, another analyst to our channel because there's definitely been a lot of games over the past year and a lot to cover. So hopefully we can continue to bring some soccer coverage to you with a little bit of consistency. Daria, thank you for coming on to this episode. Definitely, I think a prediction, some of them will pan out, some of them maybe not, but that's the beauty of football. From myself and Daria, it's been a special episode of 5-5 Sports. So enjoy the rest of the tournament and see you guys next week for our hockey and NBA roundup.